What's up, team? Time for a staff video update. Thanks for taking a couple minutes to hang out with me. And we're going to dive right in to get through some of this informational stuff that I think will be helpful for you. First thing is there are two people who've been elevated to rock star status. That's right. The organization that leads the database that we use in the check-in software, Rock, has promoted two of Cedar Creek's staff members to rock star status. I think there's like 75 of these individuals. One of them is Jason Jones. He's a rock star veteran. And Liz and Brent were both elevated to rock star status. Give them a hand clap. Come on. Woo, way to go. I think it's cool that our team is being recognized for the ways in which they serve and help contribute to both that organization, but the broader Seed Church. And so, man, just want to cheer them on, give them a air five the next time that you see them. So excited about that. Next weekend, the campus pastors are going to be speaking, and they're putting together a video teaching where they're all going to be a part of the same teaching. Fun little experiment for us. You're going to see us continuing to try little things to try to drive online engagement. In fact, when it comes to our mission, if we're going to reach spiritually restless and unchurched people, if we're going to help people, introduce people to Jesus, as we would say, to the life-changing adventure with him, one of the things that we're realizing is that if you guys are getting bored after 5 to 7 minutes of a staff video update, 30 minutes of a weekend service is going to be really bad. And so what we're trying to do is leverage what we see or what we've kind of been accustomed to in culture, quick cuts, inserting extra videos, just trying to make sure that we help the attention span of the already convinced and the person who's never been there before, just to continue to track with us and laugh with us. I don't know that there's a whole lot of spaces where we laugh, and so I love it that we're trying to find some creative ways to make people smile. Another key framework in how we build our weekend messages that I think is helpful for me to continue to reiterate, because some of you get questions like, why doesn't he just jump right into the scripture right away, or more Bible passages? I love Bible passages. I love talking about all of those things. But sometimes, if you look at Jesus and Jesus' teaching, he used metaphors. He used everyday cultural items. You're like a grain of wheat. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains alone a single seed. He was not exegeting the Torah in the Old Testament. He would do that in select spaces, but most of Jesus' teachings were around metaphors in their everyday life. We do the same thing. We find common vernacular, things like William Bridges' framework for transitions, and what we do is we take, hey, you may see this in culture today. Did you know that it's actually a deeply spiritual thing that's not just William Bridges or a common book or an everyday quote? It's actually rooted in something much more eternal than that. And so that's a little bit of our strategy. So people ask, maybe as a reminder for you, that's why we do what we do. And we're going to be tinkering with that in the next series, the next really 2 series that we're stepping into. And so I want to give you a quick flyover where we're going to be headed over the next few months. September, we are going to be kicking off a brand new series called Finding Peace. And so this is kind of like the Anxious for Nothing, except it's a 2.0 version of it. And there's going to be some spiritually, I would say, intense passages that we're going to look at, but I'm going to try to wrap them in everyday vernacular or an approachable way that even if you've never read the Bible, it begins to help unlock some of the internal anxiety, worry, concern, anger, frustration that you carry around. And so I'm really excited about this series. I hope you get your teams excited about it. At a staff meeting, I think 3 or 4 months ago, I talked about some of the internal anxiety that we carry, and that is some of the content I'll be unpacking over the next 4 weeks. So be excited, pray, invite your huddles to pray about the next series, invite your huddle teams, the people that you interact with, the people in your group, to be prayerful and inviting their friends to this, to be leveraging what we release on social media. September is a time where traditionally we would see people get back into the church rhythm as people go back to school. But as you know, back to school is all over the place this year. So We're going to experiment with how we engage with people online. We're going to try to be a little more interactive, a little more choose your own ending, give people options. Why are we doing this? Because our hope is to help introduce people to Jesus in the life-changing adventure with him. And what you may be excited about, the singing, because of where you're at spiritually in your relationship with God, or maybe taking communion or something, that may be exciting for you. Somebody else doesn't quite understand or fully appreciate that. In fact, they would rather take a first step into growth track, family worship, something like that. So we're going to experiment with how we wrap and present or invite people to engage with our service through September and just see what we learn. Another thing that we're going to be watching is how many groups do we have available for people? Maybe you've heard me say, man, I would love to double the number of groups that we're offering. So right now is the time where we follow up on the people that we've planted seeds with about hosting a group and really try to use our influence to get them to leading a group. That doesn't mean force them, beg them, be needy, but it is time to say, hey, I would love for you to try to lead a group this semester. Or maybe you've been leading a group and it's time for you to hand that group off to somebody who's in your group, who is capable, so that you could go start a new group. If we provide more group options, it allows more people to feel connected to our church, whether they regularly attend online or the weekend or not. So I'm excited about that. We're also going to be planning for our kids relaunch, depending on what we see happen with schools being reopened in September. So as we get into October, we hope to relaunch our kids and student ministries in our physical environments. We're going to celebrate 25 years together, and the arts team is working on a pretty special project that will help show the story of what God has written here, and I'm excited to see that unfold. We're going to gather our dream team at the end of October, and the purpose of that is to really help inspire and equip them in this new ish corona environment, and to really say, hey, here's some of the new things or key things that we want to be focused on in this next season. So we're working on plans for that. And then November, I'm operating under the assumption, and I could be wrong, but sometimes you need to operate out of an assumption so you just don't stay stuck. I'm operating out of the assumption that we're not going to go back down into quarantine. If we do, we're going to have to throw a lot of strategies out the window, and we'll adjust and pivot like we did in the spring. But right now, we're going to assume that we're going to continue to meet and continue to gather. And so when November rolls around, it's like back to church month, online or physical. Every November, we see people coming back to church, in part because of daylight savings time. So we're going to try to re-engage people in our church. People who've been on the outside. That's some of the messaging that we're going to be bringing through the month of October and in November. And then our goal, we have Brian Tome, a guest from Crossroads down in Cincinnati, coming up and speaking with us. And then our goal is really to prep for the biggest Christmas ever. As we think about Christmas being digital and physical, we're going to begin laying the groundwork for that. And that's ultimately a great time for all of us to be reminded of who Jesus is, but also for all of us to be reminded that there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents than over 99 who stick together and have it all together and, know the Bible. Jesus' heart is always towards the one. And so we get to live that out in a pretty special way each Christmas. So that's what we're working through right now. That gives you a flyover of some of the direction that we're heading. And hopefully that helps you kind of set your course for the next few months. Now, here's a reality that we're all experiencing as we continue to work from home, and some people don't want to come in and serve, and so you're talking to them via Zoom or GoToMeeting or FaceTime or texting or whatever. What we're seeing right now is the more that we work from home in our individual silos, this is starting to kind of what we need to understand is that we need to normalize that we get a little angsty. That I was talking to Jeff Harris this weekend. It's almost like you get sick of the four walls that you're in. You get sick of seeing people on Zoom. And here's what we get prone to. We get prone to getting a little bit out of sorts with each other. We not sure that we feel connected the same way that we did, or it's easier to get frustrated or take things personal. It's start to lose our culture and lose our way. Essentially, what we realize is how valuable those casual connections, those loose ties are throughout the week when somebody swings by your cubicle and says, how's it going? Or hearing the laughter of the room. It's those experiences that remind us that we're in it together, that we care for each other. And when you lose those, suddenly when there's feedback or there's an email, or we're just prone to kind of drift down that path. So if you're feeling a little bit of that, if you're quick to get frustrated or feeling a little sensitive or feel like people are being insensitive with you, perhaps it doesn't have as much to do with them as it does to do with just some angst that we're all feeling. Me too. So here's your options. Either you can take a deep breath and assume the best and get over it, or you can follow up with them and say, hey, that just felt a little weird. Are we okay? And just create some conversation around it. Here's what's not okay. To let it linger, start to take it personal, then start to look for all of the ways that they're being offensive. That's actually not biblical. And it's not healthy for our team. So let's lean into that, because oftentimes our frustrations are a reflection of our inner world more than they are about the other person. And so if we're a little out of sorts, maybe that's an opportunity to recalibrate. An article that helps recenter some of this, Luke shared with our executive team. Pastor Dan Reiland shares online. I've included, or had Casey include, this in the link below. I'd encourage you to read it and just go, hey, let's make sure we're operating out of the overflow of God's grace in our life, not just getting ouchy with each other, all right? And if you are getting ouchy, or if somebody's getting ouchy with you, let's be kind to ourselves and to others. Because the truth is, it's kind of funky. It doesn't feel the same. Parts of it, it's like, and you don't really realize what's missing until it's gone. And then when it's gone, you're like, I didn't realize how significant that really was. So keep leaning into this together. We have important ministry work in front of us, really important. And as we continue to show up with a heart full of grace, a heart for the unchurched, a heart to inspire people to live out the Great Commission, the final kind of charge that Jesus gave all of us to reach people. The harvest is plentiful right now, friends. But unfortunately, a lot of Christians and a lot of workers are more worried about what they need than the people that God cares about. So let's be the workers that God put us here for, and let's go make a difference. All right? You know I love you. And that's all I got for you. I'm out. See ya.